I'm Barry. And Sis Ananian and Marco Pesenti Gritti, Sayamindu on the phone are going to talk us about, what are you talking about?
Compatibility with regular legacy desktops.
Great. You guys?
I guess I called it in my slides playing nice with others. And I used GNOME as an extreme example of what we could play nice with.
Now, are you going to be able to do that without sitting in the slide path so we can read it?
Yeah, I'll sit over here. Does that work?
Right.
Over here. Marco and Sayamindu and I had a very fruitful series of discussions on email about all this stuff. So I'm going to present some slides that are my take on stuff, and then Marco and Sayamindu can disagree with me. I think that's how we're going to. That's one proposal. Hopefully we've all agreed on email already, and I'll present completely uncontroversial stuff. But you should not take what I say as necessarily representative of anyone except my take on this. So I hate these overview slides. So we're going to talk about ways we can play nice with others. Start with X. We'll move up towards GNOME, and then if we've got time, we'll talk briefly about Fedora at the end. So X, we currently use Matchbox, which was originally designed for running cell phones. I think we're all in agreement that it's time for Matchbox to either grow up or be replaced. It plays very poorly with what we'll call standard desktop applications. Like if you try to run the GIMP in Sugar right now, things are bad, and it's mostly Matchbox's fault. So what we'd like from a window manager, what I'd like from a window manager, I'll say, is to support the same standard interaction mode as Sugar does right now, which is to have each application have its own window, or virtual desktop in window manager terms. But I'd like that to fall back to either an overlapping windows or a tiled mechanism or some other mechanism to gracefully handle applications which aren't sugarized, aren't single window applications. So if you run the GIMP and you've got menu bars and palettes, something sane should happen. If I run Inkscape and I've got 2 documents open at once in Inkscape, something sane should happen. I should be able to see both those windows at once in applications that are written to support that. If I'm running my favorite real-time strategy game and it's got multiple windows, somehow I should be able to see those.
Why was Matchbox originally chosen? Size?
Size, and it's the only one which actually had this full screen windowing mode.
And also we didn't really care about
Yeah.
A little louder? I don't think the camera got that.
Back in the bad old days of OLPC, the XO was going to take over the world and become so widespread that it didn't matter that we were incompatible with everything else, because we were going to have millions of them within the first year that we were up and running. So, yeah.
Next year.
Well, next year we'll have 1 million. Maybe this year we'll have 1 million.
I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar with X Windows. So what's the difference between Matchbox and X Windows?
So X Windows, the design of X Windows separates the job of managing the GUI between a window manager and the application. The application just sort of says, I've got these windows. I've got a document window here, a toolbar here, or whatever else. And the Windows manager's job is to handle all the minimize and expand and how to lay out the windows on the screen, whether you want them kind of more tiled or randomly.
So the things Scott's describing are called decorations in particular, and also window placement. So the application sort of says, give me a box I can draw in this size. Right. And the window manager gets to decide where to put it on the screen.
I think I'm all okay with window manager.
And the applications can
Matchbox
is the particular window manager that we're currently using.
Now, this in practical terms.
Designed for the iPack. It was a PDA project at the beginning, because that was before PDAs. Cell phones took over PDAs. And it was designed for if you have a really, really small screen like this, I can't have multiple overlapping windows because that doesn't make sense. So all the applications run in a full screen mode.
So the particular X window
it's a particular window manager that basically says
one way to explain the distinction is that when your application inside the window has crashed, the window border still works and you can quit.
That's another. Yeah, it's some of these details are kind of rooted in Unix's long-term preference not making any decisions.
You can blame Jim Geddes.
Yeah, we would blame him when there's next Geddes. Okay, but the good thing about the way that X Windows is designed is you can swap out your window manager for another window manager fairly easily. You don't have to rewrite any of your applications, and you can have fairly large changes in how your applications actually present themselves on the screen. So I don't think we want to change the fundamental idea of Sugar, which is one activity, that's basically the full screen mode by default. But I do think that we eventually want to let the user outgrow that if necessary. And this is partly to help people like Greg, who have decided to use Sugar all the time, and me, who'd like to do that too. When I'm programming, I really want multiple windows. I want to see I want to see my console and my source code at the same time, or two source code windows side by side to compare them. And I should be able to do that within the framework of Sugar. And a slightly older user might get to the point where they want to edit a picture here while they're writing something here. And it's not nearly as kid friendly, but a 12-year-old kid can handle overlapping windows eventually.
Yep.
So there are.
It's particularly important for the kind of writing that documenters and children do. They want to have, in the child-student case, their Wikipedia or other web window open and their write session, and be able to just see what they're working on and type it and not have to constantly swap back and forth.
So this is arguably not something that a 6-year-old may do very often, but it is certainly something that, say, a 12-year-old should.
I've got use cases for 6-year-olds, but we don't have to get into it.
So the idea is, it's a feature, right? You should be able to choose that or turn it off. So there are a couple potential window managers. If I had more time to prepare all this stuff, there would be like pretty screenshots here, and we could go through them all. And
well, has anybody here not seen both GNOME and KDE at least, or XFCE, or no?
Yeah, so the really.
No, I'm not asking all. You've seen at least two. You know that there. You can see that there is a difference.
I can do demos tomorrow. When basically my plan is when I have more free time, maybe next week, I'll go through and I'll add screenshots of these slides, and you can see them later.
Thank you.
So the particular one I want to mention here is there's a family of window managers like Awesome. I didn't name them. They did. Which are so-called tiled window managers. So instead of having overlapping windows, if Eric Garrison is
Microsoft
around,
Windows 2.
They by default. So one.
No, I'm sorry. One had tile.
Always puts
They never did
the main window that you're working on here, and fills this space up with the other window that you're working on, and maybe a
And then
third
two had
window here.
overlapping windows,
So
and
it's
that was
not
suit.
overlapping. You don't move them around. It just always has a number of things. And I think that this could. That window managers which support this mode, in addition to other modes, kind of natively have the idea of this full screen mode that we want. That's a sort of tile view.
If you only show one window, it will occupy the whole screen.
Right. And that provides, it's something that I'd be interested in seeing people think about for ways to sort of show more than one window on, which might be truer to the Sugar experience without, because you don't have to have window decoration, you always have multiple stuff. Or maybe we just want to fall back to overlapping windows.
I think having a window manager that does either is really important.
You're talking about in tiling, it always,
No, I don't.
the windows all fill the screen.
So yeah, so that's a good point. I think I say that here.
And the layout
no.
is.
Yeah, that
you
the
can move the boundary,
interesting
but
thing
you
about
can't
Awesome
drop it down in
and
the
their
screen.
ilk, as opposed to older tiled window managers, is that they have this compatibility mode where you can have standard
They have
floating
floating
windows.
layers.
And so when you actually need something, like a lot of applications, I've got this application, it pops up a dialog box, right? I don't really want the dialog box to go over in this corner somewhere. I want it to float on top of what I was working on. Ideally, I don't even want it to float. I want it to be anchored to the window, but that's a whole separate conversation. So the cool thing about Awesome is just the fact that it is both a tiled and it has a support for floating mode. But there's a number of options.
Is Awesome still fairly lightweight, and does that matter? The tiling window managers are exceptionally lightweight.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the amount of memory and disk and everything that we are resting with Python and other stuff, the window
That's a
management
floating.
is
Since we're pissing away, yeah.